Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. In this video, I want to talk about XRP, but I also want to zoom out and discuss the bigger picture. I believe it's really important at this stage in the game to understand the bigger picture and just be aware of what's going on. So in this video, along with XRP, I would also like to look at Bitcoin, the Bitcoin dominance, as well as the total 2 chart and a few of the indexes. So let's dive in. So this is the XRP chart. What I find interesting is this move up and move down. I'd like to talk about this real quick. This is actually something that has played out before on the XRP chart. Let's go back to where it first took place. Okay, so the first iteration of this structure comes from July 2023. Now, this move up was the result of the good news from the SEC versus Ripple case, where XRP is deemed to be not a security. As you can see, it shoots up and then slowly winds down back to where it started, and in this case, even below. Well, if we copy this structure and paste it onto today's chart, where it moves up and moves back down, now this was the result of President Trump posting about XRP being included in a reserve, a crypto stockpile. So if we were to copy that fractal and paste it onto this part of the chart, it would look something like this. So as you can see, it's a very similar structure. In fact, it's the same structure. I'm going to call this structure the good news structure. This is what so far has tended to happen when we get some really good news for XRP. It shoots up and then people sell the news and it winds its way back down. So for all of us that are hoping for the SEC versus Ripple case to come to a conclusion, be prepared for the possibility of something like this taking place. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to do this, but you know, this is the good news structure and that would be good news. So just be aware of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so let's remove this fractal and look at the bigger XRP picture. Okay, so this is a little more zoomed out. This is on an hour candle versus a 30-minute candle, which we were just on. Now, here is that good news structure. However, it's continued to move up, and now it's pulling back a bit. And, you know, I honestly don't think this is, at the moment, the end of the world. This, to me, looks kind of bullish, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. I'm going to show you a possibility of this, like I did in my last video, an update on this possibility that this could be the peak. And then I'll also take the other argument, arguing for if it's not the peak, what could we potentially expect? Okay, so if we were to go back to the 2021 XRP bull run peak structure and copy this part of the structure, let's zoom in so we can get a better look at it. Okay, so here we are zoomed in. If we were to copy this part of the chart, so what this is essentially is it's the primary peak and then the 2 smaller peaks that take place. So I want to copy and paste this onto today's chart. So here is that fractal, copy and pasted. As you can see, there are similarities to today's chart. So what we would be looking for, if this is the peak, is that primary peak, which this could be, and then 2 smaller peaks, which we could potentially be in the process of completing right now. So I would not say that we are out of the woods just yet, even though it's moving off of its lows. This could still potentially be the peak structure playing out. Now, it would not be cool if this was the peak. Just getting a hair's breadth over the 2018 all-time high is not a bull run that I was looking forward to. But if this is reality at play, I will have to bend the knee to this. Although, let's not throw in the towel just yet, because I don't think that this is necessarily at play. So if this is not the peak, we should expect price to continue to move up. Now, I'm going to throw out a couple different possibilities, and you'll see how this could potentially still be gearing up for a nice move up. Let me show you. Okay, so in my last XRP video, I showed you this fractal. Now, this light blue fractal is essentially starting from here and just doing all of this and going to the peak. As you can see, there are some similarities. Price starting basically right around here, it moves up. It has a similar structure. Today's chart, of course, tumbles much farther than it did in the fractal, but that's not out of the ordinary, as when a fractal repeats, the timing, the height, and the depth, those are going to be original to the new structure. So even though the basic idea copies over, the timing, height, and depth, those will be something that will be original to the new iteration of it. So it's playing out here. However, once it gets here, it doesn't really match very well. However, if we take this part of the chart and just stretch it out a little larger, we get the dark blue fractal. Now, this could be at play. Today's move down, of course, was more extreme than what this fractal suggested. And for a while, I thought this was actually playing out at a faster pace, maybe something like this. But as this kind of continues to evolve and develop, this is where I think it's potentially at. So if this is at play, we should expect price to continue to work its way up. Now, this is important. Once it gets above this high, historically speaking, and I've shown you this in previous XRP videos, price goes straight to the peak. There are 7 moves that take place on a small time frame. Essentially, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That 7 gets you to the peak. So that's what I am expecting to take place once or if it gets above this current high. Now, there are some other fractals we can compare to that also point to a different possibility, but still ending in a new all-time high. So that second fractal that I'd like to show you is if we took this structure right here, which is the third corrective structure within the macro repetitive bull run structure. Let me show you what that is real quick. Now, I've discussed this in previous videos. So the macro repetitive structure of an XRP bull run has 3 corrective structures within it. We have the first one here. We have the second one. The key kind of unique thing about this second one, it has 2 parts to this correction. So you have the first one, and then it moves up, and then it has the second one. Either one can be the larger of the 2. After that second corrective structure, it goes into this third corrective structure. And normally, the lion's share of the time, once it gets out of, or once it gets above the high of this third corrective structure, it goes straight to the peak. That's why this could potentially be the peak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this third corrective structure and paste it over here. Let's begin by removing this other one. So here we go. So this fractal is this right here. Now, it's not note for note. It's different in some ways. This is just recent history repeating itself. So charts can tend to repeat themes from its recent past. However, when it does it every time in an original, unique way. So that's what this potentially is. So we have the kind of wave right here in this first peak. Well, it's actually more like this. So you have the peak right here, then you have this wave, you have this decline right here, which is this on the fractal over here. It then kind of goes flat on both the fractal and the chart, and then you have this wave down, which we see on both the fractal and the chart, and now we would potentially be working on something like this. Well, if this is at play, what we could expect is this to kind of bottom out over here. Maybe it will be a bounce. Who knows how this will actually materialize? It's going to be unique when it plays out. But then at a certain point, we would expect for price to start moving up and get above this current high. And like I said, once it gets above this current high, we start counting those 7 moves. I'm going to be on an hour candle. If you're on a day candle, you're going to miss those 7 moves. So once it gets above this high, that's when I start counting. Now, what I'd like to do next is I'd like to show you the peak structure that we just looked at from the April 2021 bull run peak versus this one. Okay, so here we go. So it's a little confusing, but believe it or not, they do the basic idea. They're very similar to each other. one just ends up breaking up and the other one ends up breaking down. So we see how they both have this initial kind of peak right here, this second wave right here, this third wave right here. It's when it gets to this point. So if this is going to play out, it would do this part right here, which is in both fractals, and we still wouldn't know which one's which. It would start to move up in both fractals, and we still wouldn't know which one's which. It would then pull back on both of these. We still know what is playing out. However, after this, if it continues to move down like this, we would start saying, this is that third wave of the XRP peak structure playing out, and this is where I will bail. Now, if we get this pullback and then it starts to move up again, I am going to start looking for something like this to be printed on the chart. Of course, it's going to look unique. It's going to look original. The timing, the height and depth, all that's going to be different. But we would be looking for, once we start seeing signs that it's pulling up, that, hey, this is going to the peak, especially once it gets above maybe this high right here after this pullback, then we know this has potential to make a new all-time high. So that is how I see XRP right now. It's kind of a wait-and-see moment. You know, let's compare all three fractals, the one that we just looked at where it kind of does this part right here. Okay, so now it's even more confusing. But as you can see, starting where this dark blue one is, they all kind of actually do something very similar. So what we're talking about is really the same structure or possibilities playing out, and it's really once we get past this pullback or this point right here that we'll really know. So all these fractals are really all, for the most part, in harmony with each other. We'll just have to continue to see how things play out. Now, I'm going to build a case looking at Bitcoin, the Bitcoin dominance, that we potentially will see a new all-time high in XRP. Okay, so this is the 2017/2018 bull run peak/decline structure. That's what this purple fractal is. As you can see, today's chart is following it. Now, this is not the only peak structure that Bitcoin is currently following. We can go back to the previous Bitcoin peak, which took place in 2021. We can copy this structure. In fact, we can even copy this structure. Let's start with this structure and then move to this structure. Okay, so this is the 2021 peak or all-time high that took place in 2021. As you can see, once again, it's following the basic idea of this structure. Now let's copy this structure right here. This is the one that takes place before the one we just looked at. Okay, so here it is. So this is January, I believe, through July 2021. As you can see, it's also following this structure. These are all peak structures. Folks, what Bitcoin is doing, as I pointed out in my previous videos, Bitcoin is at a peak. What we are seeing is not a pullback before another large leg up in the Bitcoin chart. We are past all that. This is a peak structure we're in. Now, it could potentially shoot up here and make a new all-time high. However, it's not going to be a big move up. It might not even do that. But let's assume it does. Let's say it gets up above this current high. It would stay up here for probably a short amount of time and then come crashing back down. And it would just be part of the larger peak formation. I'm going to put the 2017/2018 fractal because I believe that one is the closest match. So here it is again. Now, this is a range-bound time that we are going to go through before eventually, if it continues to follow, dropping to the next kind of tier on the way down. Now, if we were to copy this structure right here, which is the current all-time high, and paste it over here, it would look something like this. Now, it's really the same thing that this purple fractal is doing. It's just a different expression of it. So we could see something similar to this, as this is, once again, the chart repeating recent themes from its past. Of course, it may not look exactly like this, but it could potentially look something similar to this. And in this part right here, now I don't know if it will happen. This is the part that if there's going to be a move up to a new all-time high, even though it's brief, I believe that this right here, this part of the chart, would be a probable place for something like that to take place. Now, we'll have to see how that happens. On the flip side, say it doesn't make a new all-time high, it is possible that in this time right here, the altcoins do very well. We have precedent for that back in this same structure. Now, it didn't take place here. It took place over here. By the way, as you can see in the fractal, this was the high. I thought this was going to be the high. However, this is kind of an anomaly, how high it moved up here while following the same structure, but those things can happen. So this, on today's chart, is the all-time high, but back in 2017/18, it was this structure right here where the altcoin market took off, and it wasn't an all-time high. Okay, so now that we're talking about the altcoin market, I'd like to look at the Bitcoin dominance. Now, what the Bitcoin dominance is a percentage of how much money in the entire crypto market is in Bitcoin. So right now, we have 61.10% of the entire crypto market invested in Bitcoin. As this falls, or if this falls, money would bleed out of Bitcoin, and it usually goes into altcoins. So something like this could potentially be an alt season. Now, this structure is from 2017/18, around the same time frame, not exactly the same time frame, but around the same time frame that we're examining that Bitcoin fractal and comparing it to. So this takes place also during that time. Now, as you can see, today's chart is potentially doing something similar. Now, I don't know if it will continue to play out like this, but if it does, we are potentially near a point where it begins to decline. Now, I've thought it was going to decline earlier, and it hasn't. It's kind of been quite stubborn, but I believe this is a possibility, and if it is, we would begin to see the altcoins begin to start firing up. So now that we're talking about altcoins, let's go look at the total 2 chart. Okay, so this is the total 2 chart, and total 2 is essentially everything, all of the crypto market except Bitcoin. So it's minus Bitcoin. Now, where is this fractal from? This fractal is essentially a recent history, sort of recent history. So this is this part right here and this. Now, I don't know if this is what is at play, but as of now, it does look like it is following it. Let's zoom in. So here we are on a 3-hour candle. Now, if it is doing something like this, and as of now, it does look like it's doing something similar to this, we could expect in the very near future price, or for the altcoins, to begin to start firing up and taking off. Now, we're not quite there yet. We still have this area if this is at play, or if it continues to follow this structure. So if it is, we are really getting close to something potentially happening. Now, I don't know how high this will go. This is just me adjusting this fractal to this part of the chart. But as I pointed out, the timing, height, and depth is going to play out unique. So we don't know how high this will go. That's all speculative. However, if it does play out, I don't believe it's going to be a very long thing. It's going to be a short amount of time. What I'd like to do next, I'd like to look at the Dow and the Russell 2000. Okay, so this is the Dow Jones. As I've pointed out in previous videos, it is my belief that the Dow Jones is essentially copying this structure that's in this box that took place from December 2018 to March 2020. This decline is the C19 decline. If we just copy and paste this over here, adjust it to the timing, height, and depth that takes place over here. This is what we get. It is my belief that we have been following this and we're almost at the peak, folks. This decline, by the way, is, and I pointed this out in previous videos, is the same decline, the same structural type of decline that took place in 1929. Now, we could potentially be at the peak right here. We may be working through this part right here. However, it's my belief that we potentially are only at this first little shoulder right here on this, what would be potentially a head and shoulders. Let's zoom into this structure and I'll show you why I believe that to be the case. Okay, so here we are zoomed in. Now, this green line is the current all-time high. So like I said, we could be doing this right here. However, it's my belief that we are actually just potentially only doing this part right here. And the reason why I believe that to be the case, if we were to copy this decline and this move up and paste it onto this part of the chart. Okay, so here we are on a 1 hour candle. So as you can see, this structure does look like a pretty close match. If this fractal continues to play out, we should see the Dow Jones beginning to start pulling out of this decline and begin moving back up, eventually getting above this green line, which is the all-time high. Once it's above this all-time high, this is what I personally believe, I think crypto will come to life. I think in this short season, crypto has potential to do very well. Let's look at the Russell 2000. Okay, so this is the Russell 2000. Now, just like the Dow Jones, it's my belief that the Russell 2000 is essentially repeating what took place in this box, and that was from December 2018 to March 2020. If we stretch the fractal out to match the timing, height, and depth on this part of the chart, as you can see, it is a very close match. I don't know why people don't see this. No one that I'm aware of is with the Dow and with the Russell. No one is realizing that this structure is just repeating over here. This is, once again, very typical of recent history. The chart is just repeating themes from its recent past. Of course, right now it's doing it on a very large scale, and this decline has potential to be very large if it continues to follow, which so far we have no evidence pointing that it's doing something different and not following it. So we could potentially be completing this head and shoulders and already beginning on the decline. There is a reason why I don't believe that is the case, and it's similar to the Dow. Let's zoom in here. Okay, so here we are zoomed in. So if we were to copy this part of the chart and paste it over here. Okay, so here we are on a 3 hour candle. Now, as you can see, it's following the basic idea. We have a decline here. We have this bounce right here. It comes to a peak, it then declines, and it's working on this wave right here. If this continues to follow this, I don't know how low this will go, but it's looking like it potentially is at the end of this decline. If it is, we should see the Russell begin to start moving up, and I don't know how high this will go. I just roughly aligned it to this part of the chart. It may not go this high. If it does move up, I don't believe it's going to be a massive long leg of a bull run. It's just going to really be the crown and glory of this peak structure. After this, it will begin its decline, and this decline has potential to be a big decline. Now, I'd like to throw in one last chart. Okay, so this is the DXY, or the US dollar index. If we were to copy this structure right here that took place from 1985 to 2002 and copy and paste it, now I have adjusted this to match pretty closely this part of the chart. You could just take parts of the fractal and just stretch it out and it still matches. I just took the time to make it look pretty. It's my belief that we are currently in this part of the structure. So once this peak completes, we are in for a long, protracted decline. Let's zoom in over here and examine what is taking place. Okay, so this is on a 3 hour candle. Now, this is the middle wave in that peak structure. As you can see, it has been following it pretty closely. Now, I thought it was playing out on a larger scale, but it's not. I believe it's playing out at this scale. So if this is to continue to follow We potentially have another bounce. I don't know how that will look, when it will take place, how high it will go, or how low it will go. But and it may not even go lower than this. It could just be like this. But either way, we have this bottoming out structure, and then it moves back up. And by the way, this could be this height. It could be higher. It could be lower. If we were to go back over, where is it? Here, this move right here. Now, I've stretched this to match the height, but when it originally played out, this was much smaller. So this is a good example of the basic idea repeating, but the timing, height, and depth playing out uniquely. So I would be prepared for some novelty or some timing, height, and depth differences to exist in what's not printed yet. But as you can see, the DXY is following this structure, and it's this move down that is really good for crypto. So the crypto bull run, if there's going to be one, is probably going to take place in this time frame. This is speculation, of course. Once it moves up, it's challenging for crypto to do well in an environment where the DXY is very high. This is probably in conjunction, this is speculation here, with the Dow Jones and the Russell, and actually all the indexes, as you've seen in my other videos, have the same structure playing out where there's a steep decline. So this could be a flight to safety, people trying to run to the dollar for safety before the dollar turns around and plunges. So we have some interesting times ahead, folks. This is why I want you to be aware of the bigger picture. What we see in crypto is one piece of the bigger puzzle. If you're thinking that this crypto bull run or Bitcoin is just going to kind of keep going up and XRP and sail off into the sunset, that's not the reality. The way the big picture looks is we are in the blow-off top, folks. This is the grand finale, so you don't want to misjudge where we are. Now, maybe it won't play out like this. Maybe we will dodge a bullet and we won't have that decline. That's always a possibility. But right now, we have no evidence in the charts saying that that is going to happen. My advice is be prepared for that possibility. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. Well, folks, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but if you did enjoy this video, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. If you are not yet a subscriber and you like this type of technical analysis, this is unique technical analysis. The stuff that I do is typically repetitive macro structure. I didn't really delve into it much this video. I used more recent history fractals, but the type of analysis that I do is unique. No one's doing it. So if you did find this video interesting and you would like to see more of it, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. For those of you who are interested, I have a Patreon that it's really a Discord, but it's connected to my Patreon. It's a $5 a month subscription. I'm very active there. If it's something that you're interested, I'll put a link to it. I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description of this video. Like I said, it's a $5 a month subscription. You're welcome to join. Folks, I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.